and welcome to the second annual Duval Green Future Fair 2026 online. On behalf of the Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, Duval DECF, want to thank you for joining us for a day of education, collaboration, and action as we explore innovative solutions that strengthen our communities, protect our environment, and cultivate a healthier future for all. This year's theme, from contamination to cultivation, faith, family, and community solutions for a sustainable Jacksonville, reflects on our commitment to transforming environmental challenges into opportunities for healthier neighborhoods, stronger economies, and more resilient communities through education, advocacy, and collective action. Throughout today's virtual summit, you will hear from national, state, local leaders around the United States and beyond, representing government, healthcare, education, faith, community, businesses, technology, and media, the arts, advocacy, as we explore practical solutions to achieve environmental justice and community sustainability. About the Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, known as Duval DECF, is the official Duval County chapter of the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, DECF. Our mission is to educate, organize, and mobilize residents and educate candidates and elected officials around environmental justice, climate resiliency, clean energy, public health, conservation, and sustainable economic development. We believe that every community deserves access to clean air, clean water, healthy neighborhoods, thriving parks, quality education, economic opportunity, and a voice in decisions that impact their environment, such as policy and how our tax dollars are being spent at the local level, the state, and the federal level. Through community partnerships, civic engagement, educational programming, and grassroots advocacy, Duval DECF works to ensure environmental solutions benefits all Floridians, not just Duval County, especially communities that have historically bore a disproportionate share of environmental burdens, such as redlining, severe flooding, excessive heating, bad quality of air, and the list goes on and on. About the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, DECF. The Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida is a statewide organization committed to advancing policies that protect Florida natural resources while promoting environmental justice, climate resiliency, clean energy, sustainable growth, and public health. Working through local chapters across the state of Florida, DECF empowers Democrats and community leaders to advocate for policies that preserves Florida rivers, springs, beaches, wetlands, wildlife, environmental justice communities, and coastal communities while investing in a cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable future for generations to come. Our featured community partner with the Duval Green Future Fair is Green the Church, Florida. The second annual Duval Green Future Fair is proud to partner with Green the Church, Florida, a national faith-based environmental justice organization dedicated to mobilizing congregations for care creation through environmental stewardship, climate resiliency, food justice, renewable energy, and community health. Green the Church Florida equips faith leaders with practical tools to transform their houses of worship into centers of sustainability, disaster preparedness, environmental education, and community resilience year-round. Together, we recognize that God's creation is both a moral responsibility and a pathway to healthier families, stronger neighborhoods, and environmental justice for future generations. So our schedule of events will follow as such. This is an online event, so you do not have to sit for the entire day to watch our different sessions. There will be scheduled breaks to also promote digital wellness, well-being, to give your eyes a break from screen time, so you can bring your snacks, your meals, your lunch, and you can tune in and the sessions, and make sure that you submit your questions while you're watching, listening, and learning for the live Q&A that's later this evening. So right now, I'm giving you our welcome and our greetings to the Duval Green Future Fair. Then from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., our first panel will deal with government policy and civic engagement, where we're going to hear from national, state, and local leaders and some advocates regarding policy leadership for healthy, sustainable, and resilient communities, and making sure that we are electing environmental friendly candidates. Then from 11:15 to 12:15, that's only lunchtime, that you are welcome to have your lunch and learn with us while you're watching, is our second panel that deals with family health and community wellness. We're going to talk about healthy families, healthy communities, protecting our future from environmental health risks such as PFAS, forever chemicals, and so much more. Then from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., that's our education, science, and land use panel, where we're going to be preparing for future environmental leaders through education, science, and innovation. We're going to have Dr. John Capice, our state chapter officer, as well as a graduate doctoral student that's also doing a specific study for the air quality in Duval County. You do not want to miss this session, and tune in and also talk about some local legislation that deals with our environment, especially growing our food. Then from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, our fourth panel is Green the Church. They're going to talk about their initiatives, how to mobilize the church. So if you have know of a pastor or a minister that's in faith leadership roles, board trustees, deacons, they need to tune in to this panel session, because Reverend Benjamin Carroll, along with the Green Florida Steering Committee, as yours truly is a member of, is going to be talking about some of the innovative things, how the faith-based community can advocate for environmental justice and climate resiliency, transforming their houses of worship. Then from 3:15 to 4:15, our media technology and digital organizing, we're going to be speaking with some of our friends around the country on different issues dealing with artificial intelligence, the data centers that's popping up everywhere, and what is happening in Jacksonville, Florida, and Duval County to equip us, and where these data centers will be placed in our communities. Then from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. is our sixth panel, where we deal with business, economic development, green innovation, where we're going to provide you with resources of what's happening in the green economy, what things that we can get involved and engage in, especially for those who losing their jobs because of AI. The green economy or the green workforce should be an interesting space for everyone to tune in and get invested in, so you can be able to grow and transform as our ecosystem grow and transform. Then from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., that is our arts, culture, and entertainment panel, where we're going to have dinner and a movie. So we're going to have several different movies. We're going to watch the movie Plastic Detox that's being featured on Netflix. There's a couple of other documentaries that I want to suggest that you want to engage in, with regenerative farming, regenerative foods, how to make sure that we can stop destroying our planet and help restore our planet. And then after all these amazing sessions, then we get to participate, and all the speakers that you hear from, we will all come together virtually from 7:30 to 8 p.m. We're going to go over all your questions that you submit in and have a conversation, get any new updates since these presentations, to let you to be aware of. Most importantly, we want to make sure everyone has got their vote by mail to ballot. If not, check your supervisor of election office. You can download the sample ballot. You need to be an informed voter to investigate all the individuals that's running for office, because we do have a lot of folks are running. And we need to make sure that environment is one of their top issues on their agenda. So to submit your to RSVP, there is a link on the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida website, Green Future Fair. We want you to RSVP so we can send you updates and alerts throughout the day tomorrow when each session begins and ends. And then we have another link we included for you to submit your questions, so you can we can have them all before the live Q&A. Our vision for the Duval Green Future Fair is more than a one-day event. It is a movement to educate, empower, and connect residents with the knowledge, partnership, and resources needed to build healthier, greener, and more resilient communities throughout Jacksonville, Northeast Florida, and beyond. Together, we are transforming contamination into cultivation by investing in people, protect our environment, and creating lasting solutions for future generations. We ask you to stay connected. We love for you to like this stream. Make sure you're joining in the conversation in our live Q&A chat at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you share this event with your family, friends, and neighbors, and subscribe to receive future environmental justice programming, educational webinars, and community conversations from the Duval DECF and the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida. I also want to let you know we're going to be raffling off a gift basket, hurricane preparedness gift baskets. There's going to be some trivia questions in between, so you make sure you don't want to miss out on anything and share. And I have some announcements coming up on things you need to put on your calendar to get engaged and involved. This event is hosted by the Duval Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, known as Duval DECF, in partnership with the Democratic Environmental Caucus of Florida, DECF. The state president is Ms. Judy Freiberg, and Green the Church Florida, the Florida director is Reverend Benjamin Carroll of the Greater Antioch Church in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And yours truly, the Duval DECF president, Dr. Teresa V. Wakefield Gamble, where we are putting people and planet over profits. Thank you so much for listening. Please send us your questions. We would love to hear from you and share this event. Thank you so much.
My name is Judy Freiberg. I'm president of the DECF, and it is the responsibility of our environmental caucus to help our party develop environmental policy that follows our democratic values. And that is why we're suggesting hyperscale AI data center development become a priority campaign issue. These data centers present the epitome of the challenges our country is facing, as special interests exert more and more control over our elected representatives, and policy decisions are no longer made in the interests of voters. Candidates are campaigning on all of the issues raised by hyperscale AI data center development. In doing so, they're earning support from Florida voters who are affected in different ways, regardless of party identity. They're engaging where these centers are being proposed with rural voters, voters living in communities whose residents have little or no political power. Young people are losing jobs because of AI. Voters understand the severity of the threat to our privacy rights as a few big tech companies profit from obtaining data by surveilling Americans and by asserting control over our country's data and information infrastructure. All these people will be your constituents, but not if they view Democrats as more interested in helping those who profit from growth and development instead of preventing growth and development from harming Floridians and our environment. The electorate is changing. This is a democratic opportunity to join the growing grassroots opposition to these centers and incorporate this into our campaigns to prioritize people over profits. The first line of defense of these centers at this moment rests with local governments that have to approve these proposals. Citizens are organizing and beseeching city councils and county commissioners to put a stop to these, not approve them, and enact moratoriums until and unless they can be built and operated safely. And so now it's my turn. I said at the outset that Democratic candidates will win if we bring back Democratic voters who are alienated from our party. And there's an electoral shift in this country. We all know it. People are equating money in politics with unregulated and constant growth, and are now interested in candidates who do not push growth and profit as inevitable or desirable. They're looking for candidates who will fight these hyperscale centers as opposed to figuring out how to make them happen. So here's our policies that we feel that elected leaders should support. First, on both state and federal levels, we must bring back regulatory agencies, set up statutory and regulatory criteria that protect local governments from having to set the standards. As it is now, local governments are being required to set standards county by county on hyperscale data centers. The recently passed data center bill in Florida, it's called SB 484, is touted as protective. It really is not, because it leaves it up to local governments to approve the developments and to determine the standards. Here's how these centers get proposed in local government now. Here's how it works, and this is why these centers are so easily allowed. An AI company makes a deal with a Florida utility company, let's say, for example, Duke Energy, who then agrees to build the infrastructure to service these hyperscale centers. Duke then has to create debt in order to build out the infrastructure. That is then supplies, and then Duke has to supply the water and energy to the center. That debt is the responsibility of Duke Energy, not the AI company. Um, and if the center is used, never used, or used and then abandoned, the energy company is still on the hook to pay the debt. That our environmental agencies require minimum environmental protection standards for data centers to be regulated and enforced by those agencies. That'll only happen if they operate independently from special interests. The Florida EPA, the federal EPA, must have returned to them their ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants. Um, there is a larger discussion about why we need to reform the United States Supreme Court because it is that court that ended the EPA ability to set environmental standards. For both federal and state agencies, at a minimum, need to prohibit tax rebates or any other incentives for these large-scale data center development. Prohibit water depletion by the centers, prohibit air, land, water, and noise pollution, ensure all new developments use only clean energy, and that centers pay for their own utility use. Given the level of significant depreciation of the hyperscale data center assets, which was what Ashley was talking about, ensure there is economic protection to communities when these centers can no longer be used and must be dismantled, so that the utility and AI companies pay to reclaim the land, clean up the pollutants if they can be cleaned up, not ratepayers or taxpayers. In this campaign in 2026, we recommend that state legislative candidates support a statewide moratorium on all hyperscale AI data center development, and federal candidates support a national moratorium. Although not directly an environmental issue, these centers bring up other reasons that voters are so against them, and we think candidates should consider these concerns in their campaigns as well. AI, as we know, is causing tremendous American job loss. As a policy matter, how are we going to address the loss of jobs and the loss of the benefits that go with those jobs? This is one of the reasons so many young Floridians and working people are alienated from the establishment wing of both parties and attracted to populist candidates from both parties. This is a campaign opportunity for our candidates. Here are some policy considerations when campaigning on AI and jobs to discuss with young voters, with voters who are losing their jobs. Higher taxes for the very wealthy to fund social safety net for all Floridians, which includes concepts like minimum income, increase in minimum wages, Medicare for all, housing that is affordable, mass transportation powered by clean energy, along with new jobs in clean energy sectors. When engaging with young voters and discussing AI and job insecurity, it's a very real opportunity for candidates to engage with young voters, to listen, and offer genuine solutions that convey to the voters you are not, quote, a corporate Democrat, unquote. Francesca also will be discussing surveillance issues, the loss of privacy, big tech controlling what information we have access to, including control of our private data. That's a big issue with many, many, many American voters. I'm going to point you to two bills being proposed in Congress to try to get a national handle on these issues. Senator Ed Markey will be introducing a bill as part of an AI accountability agenda. It is not yet filed. A link describing it, I hope Julia found it and can put it in the chat. It's AI accountability agenda from an article by The Guardian. This is the beginning of an attempt to create a national regulatory and legislative framework to protect environmental concerns, protect workers and citizens from AI surveillance, protect the public from discrimination, online crime enterprises, as we know, and protect democratic institutions. We recommend our federal candidates understand the effort, support it, and be able to discuss it in their campaigns. The second bill is the Artificial Intelligence Data Center Moratorium Act, sponsored by AOC in the House and Bernie Sanders in the Senate. A link to that bill will also be in the chat. The goal of that bill is to pause construction of centers until Congress enacts legislation that restores regulations protecting democracy, workers, consumers, our environment, electric grids, and water resources. And one last development. We've known that Elon Musk is proposing sending data center equipment to his space stations, ostensibly to avoid the environmental consequences, but also to profit and control our data information. We learned that a request has been made to the Jacksonville City Council to allow launch shuttles to space stations from that regional airport and to begin to equip those stations to operate data centers in space. This is a city, as Ashley said, with several neighborhoods close to the airport, already contaminated with industrial waste, already people getting sick from that. I feel certain multiple space shuttle flights will make that worse, and if approaching Jacksonville, this is probably happening in other United States locations. It is not possible to discuss all that here right now, but it does bring up the importance and the necessity of developing national standards now and pushing that conversation now. Again, we suggest you understand and support these bills and these types of protections as you campaign.
Community in order to do just that, to green the church and to create our own language, create our own table, the first environmental or faith organization created expressly for and by the African American church, the Black church.
Good day, brothers and sisters. The race is on. This is your host, Reverend Dr. Ambrose Carroll, and this podcast is produced by Green the Church, and we call it The Race, an acronym for our values: resilience, aboriginality, courage, and empowerment. Green the Church sits at the intersection of environmentalism and sustainability and the Black church. We exist to answer the question, does the Black church and community care about climate change and the environment? Each week, we bring you voices from the Black church or voices from the climate change and or environmental justice community as we wake up the sleeping giant that is the Black church and Black faith traditions to lead this movement of saving the planet, or more specifically, saving humanity's trek up on it. We believe the Bible when it says in 2 Corinthians 7:14, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land. Again, welcome to this week's episode of Green the Church. The race is on.
Brothers and sisters, God bless you. This is Reverend Dr. Ambrose F. Carroll, and once again, the race is on. Listen, today is July 22nd, 2024. Yesterday, we got the bittersweet news that Joe Biden was deciding not to continue to seek re-election for president of these United States of America. And even though it was bitter as we reflect on his life and on, the fact that I believe he gave 4 good years, Inflation Reduction Act, infrastructure bill, many student loans have been forgiven, a lot of positive strides. Of course, we understand war. I won't even call it war. We understand genocide is taking place under his watch. We understand what's going on in Sudan and other parts of the world. Just the difficulties of politics. But I really believe that he did a fair job navigating these difficult times. However, he has decided not to continue to run, and in his stead, he has symbolically laid hands on our sorority sister. He's laid hands on Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee for president of these United States. And so we feel invigorated. Those of us in the nonprofit world, nonprofit sector, all of the strides that have been given, $150 billion on the table for marginalized communities. We feel this morning that it's time to once again get up and begin working towards it with vigor and vitality to maintain it. And so would that you be in prayer with us as we indeed push forward. Green the Church is a 501c3 and also opening a 501c4 so that we can lean deeper and wider even into the political scope. And I think that brings us to what I really want to talk about today is the creation of what we are going to call nonprofit profits. That's right. Green the Church is going to launch an arm that will purposefully help pastors, clergy, those in ministry who desire to have their own faith-based organization in this environmental justice space or in the social justice space in general. We want to create a path for each and every one of you. We've been at this work now for 14 years. My first job was at the Alcoholic Drop-In Center of the First Baptist Church of St. Louis, Missouri, an organization that my dad had founded so that men and women had a place to go. You see, in St. Louis, like a lot of other inner cities across this country, back in the 70s, white men were considered alcoholics. If you were black and you had a problem with drinking, you were considered a wino. Come on here, somebody. And so they had programs for alcoholics, but they did not have programs for winos, right? And in St. Louis, there were men and women who in the wintertime were found frozen to death on the side of the road in downtown areas. And my father had a vision to create a place and a space for those men and women and wraparound services for them. It grew to even having a halfway house and things of that nature. And so our family, even though we've been in ministry in local congregations, have always been attuned to this nonprofit aspect of the work that we do. And when we were given this vision to start back in 2010, this notion of Green the Church, we knew that it would be a work that could not be contained by one individual, but that individuals all around the country were doing the same work. And we wanted to raise a flag in the African American community in order to do just that, to green the church and to create our own language, create our own table. The first environmental or faith organization created expressly for and by the African American church, the black church. And so with that, though, we found that even though we're doing this piece, and yes, even though we want people to connect with us, somebody said ain't no fun if the homies don't have none. The reality is that all of our churches are individual agents, and all of our churches are already nonprofits, but all of us don't have our official 501c3 paperwork. And because there's a lot of money coming down from the federal government, federal, state, that you need your 501 in order to submit applications for these grants. And so we want to develop a grants portal. We want to develop technical assistance for you to set up. We want to connect you to a lot of the technical assistance going on in your region, in your state. We want to connect you with other organizations that are on the ground. You may be the pastor of a local congregation. We want to make sure that your fiscal agents understand this work at a deeper level. We want to give them the tools that they need so that the programming that you have at your church can be funded in part by organizations like NASA, like the USDA, right? The Department of Agriculture, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of the Interior. We want to make sure that all of these government agencies who desire to give that 40%, that Justice 40 funding, to marginalized communities. I often say, listen, we don't own a lot of skyscrapers in the black community, but we do own a lot of faith buildings. That's right. Grandmama and them, even if they couldn't buy a home for themselves, they put in their dimes, their quarters. They sold chicken dinners and sweet potato pies in order. And then they had note burning services. Come on, somebody. In order to have for their community. And so all of these buildings, some of them are storefronts and many of them are great cathedrals, but all of them need to be retrofitted with clean air and clean water. We need to be doing workforce development, training our young people in green job and technology. So there's a plethora of things that you, ma'am, you, sir, can do. I often say if I was a young graduating seminary student right now, you see, I love the great outdoors. I love the stories of the Buffalo Soldiers, of those men and women, of those men, after Juneteenth, who went to Texas to tell their brothers and sisters that they were free. The powers that be, you see, they didn't set all those black men, those Buffalo Soldiers. They didn't station them in Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. Come on. They said, no, y'all take y'all guns and go on out west, you see. And they left the white brothers and sisters from Delaware, they left them down in the South, called them carpet baggers, and they left them for a few years until they decided that to take the military out. But the African American military, those Buffalo Soldiers, they were already in Denver, Colorado. They were already on the high plains of Utah. They were already up the Oregon Trail, and they were already, I'm out west in the Bay Area, they were already up in Yosemite. They were in the sequoias, paving the way for our national parks, you see. And I like that story. I like that narrative. And I also know that our young people need to be reintroduced to the land, reintroduced to wild places, reintroduced to knowing how to put their hands in the soil, reintroduced to knowing not only the names of tribes from Africa or tribes from the U.S., right, that are part of our bloodline, but also hearing the song of the bird and being able to identify fauna and flora. So if I was graduating from seminary and if I didn't have a church, come on, somebody, I would start a spiritual wilderness ministry, right? And I would go to the Department of the Interior and USDA, and I'd have about $200,000 a year to take young African-American church children, come on somebody, out to our national parks, to our regional parks, and teach them the word of God, right? This is what is available to us right now if we know the way. And so we spent time looking at our own system that we've developed at Green the Church for, I always say, listen, you're only one vision away from what God wants you to be doing. You're one vision away from your next step in ministry. You're one vision away. I often say, listen, we may not have a lot of resources, a lot of money, but God gives us vision every day. And if God gives you vision, we believe that God will give you provision for that vision. And so Green the Church, that's right, is working in order to start nonprofit profits. We're going to have a 6-week course, wraparound services, online portal for grants, and a plethora of other things. Also, this podcast, The Race is On. We're going to contribute a portion of this podcast, again, to this notion of the nonprofit profit. We're going to interview pastors and clergy that have started their own nonprofit organizations. We're going to interview pastors that have started and grown their own CDCs. We all know around the country that those houses of worship like Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia years ago was probably the cradle of what it means to do workforce development in a city. We know that the Harvard Hooper up in Detroit, Pastor Adams, was perhaps one of the first churches to, through their CDC, bring on, I think, a McDonald's or something like that, right, in their church. They got a strip of a part of town, a strip mall, right? Churches have been innovative. I remember 20 years ago, a pastor in LA bought the Forum, right, where Magic Johnson and them used to play basketball, right? How do we take care of the church and community? How do we bridge this gap between our nonprofit, our entrepreneurship, our for-profit organizations, our LLCs? We want to help teach you the way. We want to walk with you and help you navigate the process of being a nonprofit profit. That's right. That's right. I believe that God is calling us from so many places and spaces. When I entered seminary, the Morehouse School of Religion, I said, God called me to preach. And since God called me to preach, I thought that meant God called me to pastor, right? And I was very young coming out of seminary. I may have been 23, 24, came out of seminary, did a year-long internship with Dr. Gilletto James at the historic Beth Eden Baptist Church right here in West Oakland, California. Come on, somebody. They laid hands on me. I thought I was going to go from there and pastor somebody's church. And then Pastor Brown, Third Baptist, said, I need a youth pastor. You see, that's 1993, 94. We didn't even know what that was. That you can get paid to be a youth pastor, right? And so we ended up taking a different route than some of our peers who went straight into pastoral ministry. And the reality is a lot of of my peers became chaplains in the Army, in the Navy. There's so many other things that you can do in ministry, I'm saying, and the sky is the limit. I believe that what God puts in our heart, how we are formed for ministry, our vision. I was talking with a brother who does chaplaincy, Dr. Van Hook, out here in the Bay Area. He's a chaplain, and they're designing chaplaincy programs for people who are doing social justice ministry, right, out in the streets, because oftentimes people are trying to do justice ministry on spiritual fumes. And so we need pastors, we need clergy to figure out how to incorporate, whether from a nonprofit lens or consulting from a for-profit lens. There's ways for your prophetic voice to be heard. And Lord knows we need a prophet. Listen, I'm again just so very thankful today for an opportunity to live at this time. The last few months have been so trying as we've seen an upheaval, I think, of the far right, of the religious right, of Christian nationalism here in these United States of America. That remind us of where we got our slave Bibles from. That reminds us sometimes of the spirit of the Ku Klux Klan, right? Actually riding. It has been that devastating. And we've been crying out like a voice crying in the wilderness. Individuals have been praying, and we believe that God has heard our sa'akah and given us an opportunity to run on a little while longer. So pray that wherever you are, that we unite, that we move towards the good for each and every one of you all. And as I close, I think about the poem. It says, "This is no time to play, to dream to drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle, for the struggle, I tell you, is the gift. Be strong." Listen, this is Pastor Ambrose Carroll with Green the Church. Once again, letting you know that the race is on. God bless you, and God keep you.